I think Geneva, Kigali, and Kathmandu are bound together because these are the three places where I've experienced being the only representative of the weaker gender on a panel. And every time I've been a part of an all-female panel, it has been nerve-wracking. So when I walked into the auditorium, I tried not to man-slam, not to push women. When I sat down on the dais, I tried to keep my legs together and not to man-spread. As this discussion progresses, I will try not to man-speak and mansplain, and then take credit for ideas of the women panelists. And by the end of the session, I earnestly hope there's a men's room outside with not too long a queue and clean enough that I wouldn't get a UTI. So in other words, probably this is how most female panelists feel when they are at any panel. And for me it is very important because my children have been telling me that I have been in menopause for a long time. Because they noticed that I was having mood swings, so they gifted me menopause tea. And I thought it was a mistake. But in my practice in different countries, I see some common trends which are very worrying, where menopause is a part of that, where the continuum of women's health is actually hampering progress and development in most countries. And when you link it with the axis of corruption and women's health, then it is a catastrophe. In my work, in my previous life as a medical doctor, I saw how poorly prepared we were as medical students to deal with women's health. So in general, the development of medical science is based on the male anatomy and the male physiology. Even the experiments that are done, the clinical trials are done on male animals because the female hormonal cycle is regarded as too unpredictable and bringing in too many variables. So it's too much of a headache. So we have cases around the world where women have suffered because clinical trials have not been run on women. We've had cases of road accidents in high numbers where women were taking sleeping pills and were having accidents because the sleeping pills were tested on men and the dose that was administered was the same between men and women, whereas the metabolism of men and women is different. So men woke up at 7 o'clock totally refreshed, ready to drive. Women were still, their livers were still working on the drug. So they were having accidents at 8 a.m. So that is the case with so many illnesses. We saw how in medical school, we were not taught how to diagnose symptoms that are typical men. Later, as a cardiac surgeon, I saw that we were missing cases of heart attacks in women. They were coming too late because they were being misdiagnosed as gastrointestinal symptoms or acidity. Because again, the anatomy that has been taught in medical schools, the physiology that has been taught, the pathology that has been taught is on the male model. So that is where for the first time I noticed this challenge. And since I had joined medicine by choice, I wanted to cure and heal patients. And this lack of knowledge was hampering my efforts. So that's how I started getting involved in this. And through my development work, I saw that this is a big challenge. And just two more things to mention. I'm delighted to be on this panel with all of you here. Now, when Annie talks about talking about menopause as a Buddhist nun, all around the world, the moment we talk about sexual and reproductive health, immediately you would hear development workers, experts, academicians say that faith and culture is a barrier to sex education and to female sexual reproductive health. So when we have a champion who's willing to share her story, not only is that role modeling happening as we go on Facebook with so many people, but it is also an inspiration for other faith leaders to understand that female sexual reproductive health as well as male sexual reproductive health are critical for religions and faiths to be alive. Sick people cannot continue what they do as usual. So these are the things that gradually brought me into this area of work. That's just for starters. As a man, I also tend to speak more than I should, so I'll stop here.
So my first thing that I thought when I was suffering these symptoms, which were unbearable, was to just go to my GP And my GP told me to have a blood test, which actually doesn't work because, like you may know, the hormones in a woman's body change daily, hourly, maybe even. and so it didn't help. That's one thing. So that was like basically not the right thing to do. But I was put on a medication to ease the symptoms, which sort of worked. But I honestly, I just decided that I wasn't going to give up. I didn't want to put up with this life. And because I do a lot of training and it's important to me to be physically active and fit, and I enjoy climbing, rock climbing, and living a healthy lifestyle, I know my body very well. So I was extremely motivated to get that back on track. So it took 3 doctors over a course of a few months to actually find an online website where it's specifically for women going through menopause to talk to other doctors that are trained in menopause. They're specifically trained in menopause to have a, online hour consultation to understand better the symptoms and how to help. And that was when I found the right medication for me, which is hormone replacement therapy. I don't know how easy that is to even buy in Nepal, or if it even exists in Nepal, because I did actually run out of some of my tablets last year, and I went to maybe 15 pharmacies near the hospitals, so the ones that service the hospitals, couldn't find the tablets. So I'm not sure if that's even an option in Nepal, to be honest. But even in Australia, my medication is very expensive. In Australian dollars, it's around $70, I think, a month. But for me, as a professional athlete, I pay it because I'm, of course, I have a massive benefit to have more estrogen in my body. So whether or not, like I said, in Nepal, it's even talked about that there is this option. I also meditate, so don't get me wrong, there's that part of things where I do work a lot on my inner journey as well as my physical body, so mental health and emotional, spiritual health as well, to grow as a person of, well, an amazing being of my age. and my aim really is to live the second half of my life like even better than my first, because I have so much experience from the first half of my life. I've learned the lessons the hard way, and I think it's the best time in our life, honestly. That's what I want to promote. Like, at my age, I've been through a lot. And yeah, I just want to be the best version of myself moving forward.
Some other people who are a little bit closer to me, friends, that I do tell that, look, I'm so sorry, I'm going through menopause, so I'm not in the mood to have fun. So, but beside that, medically, I did seek help of Ayurvedic medicines for Ayurvedic therapies, therapeutic massages and some herbal medicine. I was scared to take modern medicinal help because as I know that sometimes they end up having side effects, which I am not interested to, go through anymore. So I kind of really tried my best to refrain myself from taking any of those kind of help, but sometimes it's really tough. And then some of my friends did talk to me about these hormonal therapies and so on, the gels that you can apply on your surface of your skin and so on. I did think about it, but I haven't had the guts yet to go for it. Yeah, I mean, the symptoms are really annoying at times. You seem to forget things just immediately. And that's the most annoying part for me. And I forget names, I forget people, and I forget tasks, and then the responsibilities at times, and then I tell myself how on earth I can do that. But still, I'm nowadays regularly I'm taking Tibetan herbal medicines. Every morning I wake up, there are 2 pills that I need to take. That is a must. That is actually helping me a lot. And I do seek for Ayurvedic therapeutic massage, oil massages that really helps a lot to relax my mind and relax my body. Besides that, sometimes I want to try those hormonal gels to go and apply, because sometimes I want to have fun with my friends, but I'm really not having the excitement and the energy, the zest for that, which makes me feel bad about it. And of course, I feel like I'm sorry, my friends, and like, oh, I can't join you. But yeah, if anything that doesn't seem to show any side effects in the future, I think it's okay. It's worth going for it, because especially for you all who are married and with so many multiple responsibilities and obligatory responsibilities, and your emotional attachment that you have towards your children, you don't want them to feel bad about you and so on. Yeah, go and seek help. I think nothing wrong with that. But then, on the contrary of complaining about the menopausal symptoms, there's something that has brought me good about the experience in menopause. I have gained the confidence and the guts to say, I'm not interested in any more shits from other people. So I'm enjoying that a lot. I am so bluntly, confidently, arrogantly saying, you take care of your own shits. I'm not interested in your shits, even though that is, like my younger brothers. I've always taken care of them since they were born, washing their diapers, carrying them on my back, and sending them to school. Whatever their personal desires were there, I almost acted as if I'm the second mother to them. But since I started going through perimenopausal stage in my life, I just said to them, you deal with your shits. You're old enough. I have my enough shits with me, so I'm going to deal with mine. So I stopped entertaining them, and I stopped. Some of my friends, I really love them, but they have different characteristics in their way of living. It's not making me comfortable. So I am able to say to them, look, stay away. I'm not interested in it. So I'm enjoying that a lot. That's the positive aspect of this experience. You become a lot more gutsy and kind of attitude with nothing to lose. Whatever happens, happens. I have lived enough of the shits that dealing with others' shits, it's done. So that's the positive aspect. But then, of course, as according to what I understand of my Nepali fellow sisters, you become so lazy. I did too. I'm still feeling that. We become so lazy. We become so sluggish. You don't have that zest in life to move around. I think it's very important to challenge yourself with that. You need to go out, exercise, eat healthy, eat less, only eat healthy. Seek more natural medicine or natural therapies to take care of your symptoms and your well-being. And be gutsy enough to say no more shits in your life. So I think that's what I'm going through, and
Thank you.
And the reason why I really want my fellow sisters to understand is that nothing is wrong with you. We need to educate more of our children, of course, especially the boys, because of our condition. they are also disturbed in their life. They feel unloved. They feel like targeted. They feel stinged, you know. So out of compassion, practice of compassion, I think we should be a little bit more kind and compassionate. Of course, usually we are, but we have to be skillfully compassionate, not ignorantly and stupidly compassionate. So I think it's time to wake up and say, yes, what I'm going through is natural, but I will definitely try my best not to cause much more damages in the relationships or the children's mind, psychology. So I think that's how I ended up becoming more aware of it and talk to people about it. Wherever I am given chance, I'm nowadays talking about menopause. I always tell my fellow brothers, please, please, please be kind to your women, your mother, your sisters. They're not by nature bad or rude or cruel or, bitch. It's just that they're going through some difficult time. So as we believe in saying that charity begins at home, you should start with your family members. Please be kind.
You don't have to invest big to start talking about menopause. Just go to the websites of, let's say, the government in New South Wales or the UK government, and you will see there are already resources on how to talk about menopause at the workplace. These conversations need to happen. Wherever I have worked and whenever I've had the luxury of establishing my own teams, because I've invested heavily on open competition and meritocracy, I always ended up with at least 70% women in my teams. And seeing that, some of the first things I did was to have the men in my team understand physiology and start talking about menstruation. The second thing was, wherever space allowed, I allocated a room as a restroom, bought a folding bed, bought a water boiler, a couple of hot water bottles, a blanket, and put them in the rooms so that anyone can rest. And you'd be surprised to know I've worked in a number of countries that are known as conservative, where my women colleagues came up to me to tell me that they're having menstrual pain, so they need some rest. So within the first 2 months of my work in Malaysia, I had the menstruation calendar of my entire team. And that actually was helpful. That was helpful in understanding how to plan resources. And the output of the team was fantastic based on that. Here in Kathmandu, we figured out through conversations in my team that there was an activist on menstruation, so then we organized an event at my home where she taught all of us how to make sanitary napkins, reusable ones. So these conversations need to happen in teams. So please create these teams. Those who are from the UN agencies here, when you go back, please go into the restrooms of the UN agencies and see that you have free condoms available. Sex is a voluntary act, usually, unless one is pathological. So it is a voluntary act. But menstruation is not a voluntary act. So why provide condoms and not sanitary napkins? That's an immediate change that can be instituted and sets a good example. At the community level, just to wrap up, the moment we identify a champion or a catalyst, we must grab them. So in that context, I think it is critical for everyone in this room to ensure that Ambassador Felicity Walk never leaves Nepal. Right. So community champions are critical, and I hope that today's conversation is just the starting point of many more such conversations which are solution-oriented. We have enough evidence. There's no reason to postpone. Any postponement is excuses or maintaining power asymmetry. There's enough evidence that investing in women, 1993, Larry Summers, World Bank, $1 you invest in the girl child, you get $3 back. So any country that wants to be prosperous has to invest in women's health. Not doing so, in my view, is treason.
Really reduce a lot of stress and then the difficulty that we, as women who are going through menopause, and then because of through you, it will be causing less damages in your nearest family members' emotions and well-being. So you want to avoid that for sure. because you don't like suffering yourself. You don't want your nearest, dearest, and nearest to suffer as well because of you. So maybe we should learn to adopt a skillful manner to let your nearest and dearest to understand you, what you're going through, you know. So maybe together with their help, you can lessen the agony or the pain or the difficulty that you go through. Maybe can be lessened, you know. And then what you're going through is you will be very aware of what you're going through is why you're going through it. And it is not going to be there forever. So that it's for a certain period of time. But what are the things that you really need to do to take good care of yourself in order to avoid any of the, you know, emotional damages or relationship, family damages, relationship damages, and so on. So I would really pray for that, and I have decided to talk about it wherever I'm given chances. So I really care, and I care for the well-being of everyone, not only women, of course. Men are equally important for their well-being, so I do care.
It's an addition to what you have to say, but in a different way. I think part of, or like a big part of the issue in the home is that the men are unable to express their emotion. And this comes from our society, like especially in Nepal. And that is a culture that has been passed down generation upon generation upon generation. And I actually think that part of the conversation is us as women being open and vulnerable enough to ask the man to share their own personal journey, how they grew up, the things that they've been hiding deep inside of them. That for us as women, we're able to talk with other women about since we've been young. But for men, they have had to stay strong. They have had to hide their feelings and emotions, and it leads to this society where we're not able to talk to each other. So my message is actually to start having this conversation and open up with the man and hear the man's feelings, ask questions, and then you have a space to share your own story. In terms of like how I went through the menopause, like my main message is don't give up. And it's the same message that I want to share through my climbing, that no matter how difficult and how big a challenge it is, and you might be close to the edge of not wanting to even live, because I have been there, that you can always just take one small step forward and be in a different space. And reach out to the people around you, reach out to your friends, and talk about it. Yeah.
We are slow. Our neurons connect differently, sometimes in bizarre ways that we can't predict either. But we get things through a different path. Menopause has been phrased very much as a societal problem. But for us, for men, that is too distant. We are functioning in a culture where we might bathe twice a day for personal hygiene, but we spit on the streets and we throw our garbage on the mountains while we walk. So that is too distant, social, societal cause. Let's talk about it as a family issue. That to strengthen our families, talking about menopause, understanding it is critical. So please don't give up on us yet. That's one. Second, for the women in this room, please do inquire about the health and well-being of men in your families as well. chronic conditions, as you talked about, the inability of men to talk about their conditions, their illnesses, their symptoms, etc., is very much prevalent. And the last bit is more related to Nepal, which has been so fortunate to have a number of women ambassadors, heads of UN agencies. I urge you to consider, please, and advocate for connecting women empowerment indicators of the country to the aid that is provided to the country and make it conditional. Because the main issue remaining in this country, no matter how you look at it, is women's issue. Everything else is somehow connected, but the epicenter is this power asymmetry that exists on the axis of gender. The UN recognizes in 2010 that while different agencies are applying the gender lens, it is not enough. And that is how UN Women got created, another agency which is in Nepal. So let's make aid conditional, and let's focus, laser focus on this major issue, and through this issue address health, education, poverty, corruption, infrastructure, because wherever you look, the disadvantaged are women, and menopause is one part of it.
Apart from the psychosocial interventions and change to be adopted in the individual, community, and societal level, what food supplement, or let's say vegetables, fruits, or food, can women make part of their diet in their daily lives, which are easily affordable and available in the market? Because I think food is something that's less talked about, and the knowledge regarding the food that's easily available in the market may be rich in estrogen or anything of that sort that you've come you've experienced in your practice or found beneficial in your career for women going through this journey would be something that I'm curious to know about. I think everyone is. And how can we make this journey smooth for women going through these issues who might only have access to food as a source of their supplement, but going through this journey, apart from the health and psychosocial interventions. But thank you so much for the panelists and the moderator for such an interesting discussion.
She could shed more light on what would be a good diet, but micronutrients comes as one of the things that is we always prescribe, but that's a generic prescription more or less, so that's the only answer I can give you. And I'll just briefly touch on Sarah's question on how to get the storytelling out. I think when we talk about menopause or any issue related to women's health, we have to be extremely cautious of not stigmatizing it any further. So it has to be done very carefully. It has to be done in a way that keeps the local context in mind. That's one. Second is we have a very strong history of commercializing any women's health issue. We have seen that with the female Viagra that was launched after Viagra was successful, and then 2 years later it was withdrawn because it was there were fake clinical trials, etc. Women were convinced that they have a new condition called female sexual disorder, which actually doesn't exist. We have seen that with cosmetic surgery, we are seeing it with IVF and many other things. So we have to be very careful that things don't get commercialized and women are not given fake treatments. So that is on the communication side in terms of caution on how we get the stories out here.
One more question, Doctor. As Mr. Ronier said, the gynecologist or the doctor suggested that to the uterus to be removed. Does that really happen, or it helps, or is one of the solution? Is it?
So probably my medical colleagues would not be happy with what I say next. We live in a world where we all have accepted commerce as a part of our life. So just as when you choose a school for your kid or a kindergarten, you speak to 3 or 4 different schools. Or when you're buying a new product, you go to 3 or 4 different shops. Shop around for medical advice as well. Speak to people, inquire. That era is over when the white lab coat and the stethoscope did not allow for conversation or did not allow you to question a doctor. Now you have people who walk into the consultation room after having consulted Dr. Google, which does become a nuisance for many of us. My dad constantly asks me questions based on his WhatsApp university. So, and he's a university professor. So there's a lot of complexity to that, but please do choose, please do have conversations and then select which practitioner you go to, check out credentials, check out what are they pushing, what are they not pushing, are they associated with other entities, banks and stuff. So do a triage and be an enlightened consumer also when it comes to health and choosing your doctors.
Not that I'm an expert on it, just because I'm going through it, I was really excited about sharing this to everyone, just with one deep desire and aspiration that everyone gets to know about it and not to blame as the person, rather than understanding, you better to understand what she's going through. Then I think we will stop blaming the women more, and women have to suffer more. So I think that was my prayer, actually. Whole sole reason for this event, to be part of it. Also, I want to really thank Your Excellency. We have to, address you as through that, because you represent a country, millions of people in Australia. So as a gesture of our respect for you, not just as a friend. So in the public, you are an ambassador for sure. So you have to accept that as our respect to you. Thank you so much. You are a wonderful human being in my life as a friend, and for organizing such event, which was so important. I really wanted this to happen, actually. It just manifested. You manifested it, what I prayed for. And Dr. Niti, you are a wonderful moderator, and so wonderful in, really understanding the man as well as the women, and then wonderful audience. And I hope you all really will take what we talked about into your heart and make that as a cause of your practice in compassion, being kind to your family members.
I'm honoured to be here on the panel and have the opportunity to share my story. And thank you so much, Felicity, for organising this amazing event after we met. And yeah, I just couldn't have believed how awesome it could have been. So yeah, thank you.
Yeti bujhema khulcha ni baba, swarga yahi ahile, kohi lai aru dekhdainan, आफू देख्नेले जान्नु भनेको के हो बाबा, बुझ्नु भनेको के, कोहीलाई अरू देख्दैनन्, आफू देख्नेले, कोहीलाई अरू देख्दैनन्, आफू देख्नेले.
Ali, I did want to say a very special blessing and hope for you with your campaign, your challenge. May you also, from the Australian Embassy, go safely in all that you do over the next few years. Stay safe. We look forward to following your journey, and thank you for being the inspiration for tonight. It was such a happy coalescence of having various people sort of cross my path, all with this same theme to bring to us. I simply wanted to say that I think in Kathmandu Valley, there is probably here no better place to be having this conversation. We know that immediately outside this hotel there are shrines to the Ashtamatrika, to the Ajimas, to the Mandalic mothers. These are places where our community here prays for the protection and guardianship from female goddesses.
And I hope in that same way that today's conversation is another act of celebration of women and of the worship of the power of female energy at all stages of a woman's life. I hope that this is the first of many such conversations. Thank you, Sonor, for making that plug for champions. Unfortunately, I cannot stay more than another 3 months, but in this room I feel that we have, about 80 champions from tonight, women and men, and I urge you all to go out and be those champions, to take these messages out, to ask the questions, to tell the stories, to share stories, and to continue the conversation that began tonight. Once again, my deep, deep thanks to all of you, and thank you for that blessing, Ani.